The reason I'm doing that, Mr. Gentile, is I want to quickly cover a couple of things. One thing is that in paragraph 9, Linetti retained Benish to act as a consultant expert to Gordon Silver regarding the criminal investigation. Is that still correct? I'm sure it was correct at the time you provided the declaration. Is that still correct?
I don't understand your question.
Well, I guess I'll just ask it this way. The reason that Linetti hired George Benish was because George Benish was brought in to be a consultant on water issues in connection with the criminal investigation, correct?
Well, okay. My memory is that we were looking for, I don't know the difference. I mean, I'm lucky to know the difference between carbonated water and still water, okay? I don't know about water rights. And definitely we hired George Benish for purposes of giving me an education on water rights. The only water rights lawyer I knew had been a federal judge for 25 years.
And George Benish specifically had knowledge of rights in the Virgin River Basin, correct?
I learned that later.
When did you learn that?
When I met with George Benish.
Okay, and you met with George Benish on June 21st?
That's correct.
So prior to June 21st, you didn't know that George Benish was knowledgeable of water rights in the Virgin River Basin?
Oh, that's the reason that I made the appointment with him. I knew that he was a water rights expert. I did not know about any particular geographic area in which he had any particular expertise.
And you're certain you didn't know that prior to June 21st?
No, I'm not certain. I mean, I might have known that he had done work in the Virgin Valley, but it was my understanding that he was working throughout the state of Nevada.
Well, at the time you scheduled a meeting with George Benish, just so the record's clear, you knew that he had knowledge of water rights in the Virgin Valley, correct?
Probably.
Okay. You also knew that he was specifically familiar with the Virgin Valley Water District, correct?
Probably.
Okay. You also knew that he had been general counsel for the Water District for an extended period of time.
I doubt that I knew that.
Okay.
And if I did, it made no impression.
Okay. Mr. Gentile, your exhibit, or Exhibit D, which is your declaration, states, as of June 1st, 2011, Benish was known to me to be an extremely competent water rights attorney with knowledge particularly of the Virgin River Water Basin and the procedures involved in leasing water from the Virgin Valley Water District.
Then all I could say is that my memory today is not as good as it was when I did my affidavit.
Okay.
On that subject.
So when you met with Mr. Benish on June 21st, if you didn't already know, you found out at that time that he had been a long-time general counsel for the Virgin Valley Water District.
I definitely found out on that day. If I had information about that prior to that day, it simply didn't make any impression on me. It didn't register.
It was John Linetti that first mentioned the name George Benish to you to get him involved in the criminal investigation.
Probably.
And that was because John Linetti said, hey, this guy's got water rights experience and knowledge in the Virgin Valley.
I cannot say that your question is accurate. I have no idea why John Linetti brought up Mr. Benish, but he did.
You have a water attorney in your firm, correct?
No. Yes, today we do. Well, sort of. He's a lobbyist for water.
And who's that?
Brett Scolari. But he didn't join our firm until last year. He did not become a member of our firm until February of 2012. So in May of 2011, Mr. Bingham, you're incorrect. We didn't have anybody in our firm in May of 2011.
And you don't know any water attorneys in the area?
I've never had the need for one. The only one that I knew is Judge Edward Reed, who's been a federal judge since the 80s. And he was, at the time, before taking the bench, considered to be the guru in Nevada when it came to water rights.
So you guys retained George Benish. I guess I'm saying you and Mr. Linetti retained George Benish for assistance with the
My memory is, because the way I usually do it is the law firm will retain the expert, the client will pay the law firm, and then the law firm will pass the money on to the expert. That's the way I usually do it. Might have been a little different, I don't know, but I'm the one who hires the expert because that way there's a privilege that exists.
And you discussed with George Benish the issues related to the criminal investigation, correct?
No, I didn't discuss anything about the criminal investigation with Mr. Benish.
Wasn't Mr. Benish brought in specifically to provide expertise and assistance with the criminal investigation?
I'm not sure he knew that. Why would I want to tell the world at large that John Linetti was being investigated by a grand jury?
I'm asking what you knew. I
knew that John was being investigated by a grand jury, but I can't. But your question called for whether George knew. I can't tell you that. I don't remember ever discussing with George the fact that there was a grand jury proceeding.
No, my question, Mr. Gentile, was after retaining George Benish, you guys discussed the criminal investigation.
No, we did not. That's where you're wrong. I never discussed the criminal investigation with George Benish. I used George Benish's knowledge as a water rights for dummies. Okay, I'm the dummy, he's not, and I needed to learn all that I could about water rights so that I could give John Linetti the kind of service that he needed with respect to the grand jury investigation. But I don't know that I told George Benish that.
So your testimony is you never discussed anything related to the criminal investigation with George Benish?
No, my testimony is what I just said it is. I don't know that I did.
So you
it wasn't the purpose of me meeting with him. He doesn't know anything about criminal law. Why would I discuss that with him?
The purpose of your retention of George Benish was to provide some assistance with the criminal investigation, was it not?
From my point of view, yes, but he didn't know that.
Okay, and I'm not asking for you to tell me what George Benish knew.
From my point of view, yes, that's an accurate statement. I would have had no need to talk to George Benish, but for the fact that John Linetti was, at that point in time, being scrutinized by the Clark County District Attorney's Office to include him in an amended indictment, which of course never happened.